morning. This is Anna Patterson with the North Carolina Housing Coalition. Thank you for joining us this morning for our housing call. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our Director of Housing Policy, Stephanie Watkins Cruz.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having a great week so far. Going to go ahead and kick it off with organizational updates. Want to remind folks to register for our legislative day this year on April 9th. It's called Housing Day 2025. We are partnering with Habitat for Humanity of North Carolina, the North Carolina Coalition on Homelessness, as well as Habitat for Humanity of Lake County, to be at the legislative building downtown in Raleigh on April 9th, Wednesday, April 9th. If you are interested in registering, please do so by the end of the day on March 14th, this Friday. So far, I'm really excited to see the interest that we have, not only from all the different parts of the ecosystem. So, of course, we have our Habitat affiliates. We also have several developers. We have a few lenders. We have some advocates. But also the fact that we have representation from almost half of the counties in North Carolina. So that is really affirming, and I hope that we can continue to build on that. Again, the last day to register is Friday, March 14th at the end of the day. So please make sure that you register. Moving to federal policy and advocacy updates. So if you all can recall, we sent a letter to our congressional delegation on February 21st, and it had over 400 signatures from individuals, organizations, and community groups across the state. And the best part, or even better, was that we had representation from all 100 counties in North Carolina. Yesterday, we took a look at to see if we had any additional signees, and we added over 70 different individuals and 20 more organizations and community groups to the letter. So that brings our total count to over 500 signatures. We're going to keep this letter open. It's important to keep applying pressure, so we'll keep the link to sign on to the letter in the call notes for you to access it. Just want to say this pressure is important. Don't stop, especially this week. Keep calling and keep reaching out to your elected officials. Tag in two or three of your biggest supporters or your colleagues to join you, and continue, please, to apply pressure. For the next week, make sure to continue to call Senator Ted Budd and Thom Tillis and reach out to your congressperson. Make sure that when you do that, you can just really rely on your experience, on your expertise. You all have this expertise. You're on the ground, you're in this work, no matter what side of the work you're in. So here are just a few key messages. Remember that the decision to hold up federal funds and eliminate federal staff or cutting of funding will cost people their homes. Full stop, like our executive director, Samuel Gunter, said. And the problem wasn't waste, fraud, and abuse. The problem has always been not having enough resources. Ultimately, we want you to talk about the scale of impact on your organization, and also don't forget to make a direct connection to the impact on people and the communities you serve. We are 3 days away from March 14th, which is the federal funding deadline for Congress to reach an agreement on spending levels, or else we will go into a federal shutdown. Last week, Speaker Mike Johnson released a 7-month funding patch to keep federal government funded until the end of September, which is when the budget year ends. It would extend funding levels for federal programs, but it would be based on the fiscal year 2024 spending bill, and it only provides increases for a limited number of key programs. The House is actually expected to vote on this as early as today, March 11th. So here are just some key points from this proposal that we'd like to point out, and we'll make sure to include links to some deeper analysis and summaries for you. Some key points in this 7-month continuing resolution, this funding patch, is there are no additional disaster recovery funds. No additional disaster recovery funds. Just going to repeat that. Disaster recovery continues to be a huge topic of conversation, of course, as we continue to look at what is happening and allocate funding and resources on the recovery for Western North Carolina. So this spending bill has no additional disaster recovery funds. There are no solutions for the summer deadline to raise the federal debt ceiling and avoid defaulting on the national debt, which would have its own series of extraordinary consequences. We do have a comparison of the Senate and House proposals before this one and their impact on housing and community development from the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So we'll link that in the call notes for you. When it comes specifically to some housing and community development programs, especially some key ones, there's $32.14 billion to renew contracts under HUD's tenant-based rental assistance program. This is an increase from the previous fiscal year. However, it will not be sufficient to cover the needed cost of voucher renewals, and likely 32,000 vouchers would be lost. If you are curious as to why even an increase is not sufficient to renew the current cost of voucher renewals, it's as simple as the fact that cost of living continues to go up. And so the cost to administer these programs will continue to go up. And so if funding does not increase to match that, people will lose their homes. $16.5 billion for HUD's project-based rental assistance program will receive an increase from fiscal year 2024. There'll be another increase of $931 million for the Section 202 program. It's a small increase from the last fiscal year, and this is a program that provides housing and supportive services for older adults. There's another small increase for Section 811, $256.8 million, which is a small increase from the previous fiscal year. And this program provides affordable, accessible housing and supportive services to help with just people with disabilities live in communities rather than institutionalized settings. Instead of giving additional funds for the HUD Homeless Assistance Grants Program, this proposal from Speaker Johnson gives the HUD Secretary the authority to repurpose funds made available for the Continuum of Care, so COC, builds program to fund COC renewals. And this will likely result in about almost $170 million shortfall. There is about $3.43 billion for HUD's Community Development Fund, but this is a cut of about $3.3 billion from the previous fiscal year. And a lot of this is in the form of lost earmarks or congressionally requested funding from community development projects. And just to give you a sense of what those projects are, they range from providing a shelter and providing life-saving services to family at risk or experiencing homelessness, as well as services to survivors of domestic violence, older adults, veterans, and people with disabilities. We will continue to reach out to our delegation, and we hope that you will do the same. We'll have all this information in the call notes, and we'll continue to keep you informed as we know more about what the status of the government may be after the 14th. And that may mean additional calls to actions, another webinar, and more. So please keep an eye on your inboxes. Moving on to state and local updates. So far, there have been over 600 bills filed in this legislative session as of yesterday, March 10th. So we have our bill tracker, and we are keeping up as best as we can with the numerous bills that relate to the various categories and key areas of our policy agenda, which, if you recall, are funding for housing, disaster recovery, statewide coordination, protecting homeowners and renters, and land use and development. So we linked our policy agenda in the call notes for you again, and we'll be releasing a summary in the coming weeks about not just the bills that have been filed and acted on or passed, but how they relate to our priorities and some of our analysis and stances on their potential impacts. We're looking at a few meetings this week, and we have a few meetings with some members. There's a lot of there are several joint appropriation committee meetings happening. So budget talks are beginning to kind of pick up momentum and are underway. A lot of the recent decisions in the last week or so have been in the news. One in particular is the House Bill 47. It passed in the Senate, but it had changes. And one of those changes include the complete removal of rental assistance, as well as small business grants. So we're going to continue to watch this and continue to try and understand not only why these decisions are being made the way they're being made, but also how we can continue to push for the necessary investments in housing. There are several ways to go about doing that, so this is not done yet. Moving on to events, reports, and resources, I want to lift up we are part of the Opportunity Starts at Home campaign. And one of the many great resources that allows us to continue to engage with this campaign, but also that we use consistently to highlight how housing is not a siloed issue, are these wonderful fact sheets. So OSA released updated fact sheets, and they specifically are looking at the connection between housing and disability rights, food access, and homelessness. And so those are just a few of the fact sheets that they have. When we look at all of the different fact sheets that you can access on the website, there are tons, everything from criminal justice, health and housing, education and housing, child anti-poverty and housing. Our Opportunity Starts at Home campaign, we are in a partnership with NC Child. And so that allows us to look at policies as it relates to children and housing and how those things intersect. Economic mobility and housing, economic productivity. We've mentioned that the North Carolina Chamber Foundation released a housing analysis, a housing gap study recently, looking a lot about economic productivity and how housing and the housing gap and the housing need will impact business in North Carolina in the future. Homelessness and housing, veterans and housing, hunger and housing. It goes on and on. There's at least 18 different sectors that they have fact sheets on, and they connect really well to housing, and they highlight how these things intersect. That's all I have for you all today. There are a few other things in the call notes that you all can pour through, some local news highlights, as well as a key reminder that the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery public comment period ends around, I believe, March 20th. And there are several proposals out and about, not only for specific municipality CDBG-DR plans, but for the states. And so we'll continue to update you on this public comment period, but I would highly, highly recommend this is definitely a plan that you want to provide input on and make sure that you're really clear and you're really honest about what the needs are. As always, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know it is a bit of a crazy time, but we really appreciate you all tuning in. We appreciate you all signing on to our letter, asking questions, asking for data. It's a big part of what helps keeps us motivated to do this work, as well as for the folks and communities we do this for. So I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.